All right. Hello, YouTube. So I just finished watching the first official trailer for Superman. And I wanted to give you, my overall thoughts on it. Um, so my biggest takeaway from this is my biggest takeaway from this is this this trailer pretty much confirms that the plot leak that came out some time ago, which I will be talking about here in a few minutes, because I feel like it's important to bring that up again. um now that we have our first official trailer for the movie. um but this trailer pretty much confirms the plot leaks to be true. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what I liked in the trailer, and what I thought just did not work, and what I thought just is not going to work at all. um so this trailer is 3 minutes long, and it opens with Clark Kent and Lois Lane together. Um, and this was actually in the leak. She is basically pretending to review. In the trailer, Clark is he's not dressed up as, or he doesn't have his costume on. He's just Clark. um and and Lois Lane is basically, they're basically doing like a playful role play type thing. uh and she is pretending to interview Superman. And and you know and and Clark is, and and it very quickly, it very quickly escalates, and it turns into an argument. They start to disagree. uh and from what I understand, this whole scene, um now I don't know whether or not, uh I don't know if they cut any of this. I don't know, like how much of this scene was cut, if any. But from what I understand, this scene, that I'm telling you guys about right now, that scene is 10 minutes long, from what according to a report that I saw. And it just, stuff like that doesn't get me excited for this movie, and um, if you watched my, or, if you have been watching, my Superman related, videos here, that um, I have been, I have been, pretty honest about everything. I have been pretty honest about, everything that I've been saying here. And but one thing that I'm not going to do in this video is go out on like a massive rant about, James Gunn, and how much, and how much I can't stand him, and blah blah blah. I'm gonna set my feelings aside and just give you my thoughts on the overall uh trailer and how I think this whole thing is going to go. Um so let's talk about what I thought. Let's talk about what I liked in the trailer. Um so you have a scene of, and I'll first up I want to bring up, I noticed, when I was watching this trailer, I noticed that a lot of the scenes in this official trailer, a lot of it is from the teaser trailer that dropped. And and I'm getting the and I'm getting a really nagging suspicion that that was done on purpose, and that Warner Brothers Discovery had a very hard time putting together a trailer that was going to, that was going to get people sold on this movie. Because, if you're familiar, with James Gunn's style, you know that he is very reliant on, he's very reliant on goofy, juvenile, stupid, uh, you know, humor. And it is most definitely not, it's most definitely not everybody's cup of tea. And it is definitely not my cup of tea when it comes to comic book, properties. And, you know, so, so the point I guess that I'm trying to make is, the point I guess that I'm trying to make um, I'm wondering if they used some of the scenes from the teaser trailer and put them in here because uh, uh, because they didn't want to show any of the goofy, stupid crap that is obviously in this movie, because they are afraid that it's going to turn people off. Um and I and me personally, I do not doubt for a second that that's the case. Because if you look at if for example, if you look at the trailer for Joker Folie Deluxe that came out last year, it was reported, when the movie was first announced, that it was going to be a musical. There was no um hint of the movie, of Joker 2 being a musical in that trailer that dropped. So I'm getting very, very similar vibes that Warner Brothers basically did the same thing here. They knew, they knew, they knew that the goofy, juvenile humor, uh, would turn people off. So they decided not to show, any of it in the trailer. Again, that's just a guess, but but given, Warner Brothers track record, uh and given, Warner Brothers track record, and especially, how they treat the fans, I would not put it past them to do something like that. um but let's talk about the stuff that I liked. So you have, and again, and again, a lot of the stuff, or a lot of the shot, a lot of the scenes in here we already saw in the teaser trailer. So you have a really you have a really nice shot this time of Superman saving the little girl, from being crushed, by the debris. You also have a really, really nice scene of Superman, he's in the middle of a fight. He comes crashing out of the sky, and a civilian rushes over to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, Superman! Are you okay?" And he helps Superman get up. That was a nice shot. That was a nice that was a nice sentiment. Um, However, it doesn't completely sell me on the movie, especially since, the plot leak, or, uh, especially since the trailer, um, especially since, the trailer pretty much confirms, everything that we saw in the plot leak, which I will actually be bringing up in a second. Um, the costumes, I, the cost, there's literally no other way for me to say this. I wish I could be more positive about it, but the costumes still look like complete shit. The costumes, Superman's costume. This is literally the worst Superman costume that I have ever seen. Period. I if you look at it, it looks so cheap. It looks so uh it looks so cheap. It looks like and a lot of people are saying, a lot of, again, the gun community is obviously going to tell you, oh, but it's comic accurate, and it's bright and cheerful. It's like, no, it's not. It and I said this to somebody, I think it might have been earlier this week. I was arguing with someone about this online. I'm like, just because the costume is the right color palette does not mean that the costume is comic accurate. You know, like, just because the cape is red, and the suit is blue, and the boots are red, and blah blah blah, it does not mean that the costume is comic accurate, because anybody who has read a Superman comic knows that that costume is most definitely not comic accurate. Christopher Reeve didn't look like that. Brandon Routh didn't look like that. Henry Cavill didn't look like that. And Henry Cavill's costume, uh, and Henry Cavill's costume, wasn't comic accurate either. Um, so to sit there and tell me that, oh, it's comic accurate. No, it is not comic accurate. Um, and one of the other big issues that I have with this, Superman's costume, are the costume designs for Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner, where is the green in his costume? It's like, I mean, he's a Green Lantern, and there's barely any green in there. For the most part, it's just a white, jumpsuit. Same with Same with Hot Girls. And I pointed this out, and and I commented on this, uh I don't know, it might have been a week ago, I don't remember. I don't really remember. It wasn't that long ago though. I commented on something online. In fact, you know what it was? It was uh which actually brings me to the next point that I'm about to, or the next thing that I'd like to bring up. Um th- Not that long ago, or in fact, I think it was just a couple of days ago, we got our first official trailer for, I mean, it says official teaser trailer, but it's definitely more than a teaser, because there's dialogue, there's um a lot is shown in this season 2 trailer for Peacemaker, other than, but anyway, sorry, off topic. Um the point that I'm trying to make is, um but anyway, what I'm trying to say is, there's a scene, or there's a shot of them in the trailer of, a Pot Girl and Guy Gardner, uh sitting side by side, and they're literally still in their costumes from the Superman movie. And Peacemaker season 2, from what I understand, is set to take place after Superman. So, and and I commented on this, and I posted a comment online saying, why do Hawk Girl and Guy Gardner look like the Wonder Twins? I mean, and and obviously, the gun community, it obviously tried to come out and say, oh, don't worry, they're those are their costumes, just for the Superman movie. They'll have different costumes later on. Well, I mean, it's like, I don't see that here. Do you? Peacemaker season 2 is set after Superman, and here they are in the same costumes. It just, and in anybody, and all, and the gun community, is obviously going to try to use, the lowest common denominator that they can think of, because that's how they operate. um I want to bring up, you know I I'm gonna give you some examples of times when, of times when it was reported that a character and or characters were gonna have, were said to have a costume change at one point, and and it didn't end up happening. They said the same thing for the Batman. They said Pattinson was gonna start out in, you know, in the costume, that we saw him in, and then at some point he was gonna have a different costume. That obviously didn't end up happening. Before The Flash came out, same report. He was, same thing. He's going to start out in this costume. He's going to have a different costume later on. Didn't happen. They said the same thing for Justice League. Didn't happen. So, so I don't believe for a second that, I my point is, you can't trust the gun community and what they say, because they don't have anything to back up what they are saying. They don't do, they don't, you know, they don't have, they don't list, any reliable sources or quotes from, anyone or anything. They definitely don't do the research that I do, for my videos. Um, and and it just, and it proves, what I've been saying all along, and that's, and it proves, and it proves, what I've been saying all along, and it's just, it's further proof that, it's further proof, that this movie is not going to save, Warner Brothers. It's not going to, I mean, yes, yes, Sinners, did very, very well, or, is doing very, very well, I should say, because it's still in theaters. Um, and the Minecraft movie was, a surprise hit, but you can't rely on, you can't rely on two movies, to save, you can't rely on two movies, uh or you can't rely, on the performance of two movies uh to save your company and your stocks, that have been in the toilet for, I don't even know how long they've been. I don't even know how long now. I think it might be a year, it might be 2 years, I don't know. But but you know but again, their stocks right now are literally still around like $7. And in this movie, uh in this movie, in this movie, the problem, and I know I've said this before, but it's, you're trying to get people to accept, something. You're trying to you're trying to get people to accept something that they never asked for in the first place. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody wanted, a Superman recast. Nobody wanted, uh nobody asked for, Superman to be rebooted. Nobody asked for, the DC universe to be rebooted. And I said this before, and I said this before. Look at, look at how long, Marvel, look at how long, Marvel kept, their actors around for. You know, Warner Brothers is all about rebooting the first chance they get. And it's stupid because we already had actors, that were, more than ready, to play, that were, more than ready to play these characters, for the next 10 years. And and Warner Brothers, Warner Brothers being Warner Brothers, they wanted to reboot instead. And it, and it doesn't, and it's just, it's not a good look. It's not, and it's not a good look. It's not. It would, and it doesn't get, uh it doesn't make me want to keep coming back. I and in this trailer, yes, in this trailer, yes, while there were some things, that I, while while, that there were some things, that I did, genuinely like about it, there were also a lot of things about it. There were also a lot of things about it that turned me off. And, y- and it just, it doesn't, and also too, and this was one of the biggest, this was one of the biggest, if not probably the biggest criticism of Man of Steel. This trailer had a lot of destruction in it. You know what a lot of people are, you know what a lot of what a lot of the gun community dumps on Man of Steel for? Too much destruction. And this trailer definitely had a lot of that. So, and there weren't a lot, and again, and again, it doesn't, and 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 again, there weren't a lot of shots in the trailer, at least that I noticed, where Superman, uh, you know, where where Superman was smiling, because everybody on Earth, even if they're not, even if they're not, you know, um, even if they're not, into comic books, or they don't, even people, who just watch the movies, and or cartoons, people who are, uh people, who don't collect comic books, who just watch, whether it be, like the movies, or they play the games, or or whatever, knows how Superman is supposed to act. They know that he is, he's a good person, he's a nice guy, he will, he will go up and shake your hand, he'll take a picture with you, he's not, and he will, he's a, he's a very happy, he's a very hockey, I can't talk today. He's a very happy, lighthearted, easygoing, person. And this trailer didn't give me that impression. And and that is one of the other things that turned me off about the trailer. Um and I do genuinely believe that, that the reason why this trailer took so long to come out is because Warner Brothers, was having a very hard time trying to put together a trailer, that would get people sold on the movie. Um, and and I never, and I never wanted, James Gunn, despite my criticisms, and my despite my criticisms, and how I feel about, and how I feel about Gunn, he definitely would not have been my first choice, to, he would not have been my first choice, uh he would not have been my first choice for a Superman movie, and he definitely would not have been my first choice for, or to run, DC films. Um I don't, uh I don't really like his style. I don't like, I don't like how he, I don't like how, I don't like how he constantly, turns, everything into a joke. I don't like, And I really, really can't stand just the overall goofy, juvenile, uh, disgusting, humor. That's not what DC is. That's not, what the DC brand stands for. That's not what the DC brand was built around. And it's just, it's such a creatively bankrupt and stupid uh way to go. It's not it's like, how do you expect us as the audience, how do you expect us as the audience to take it seriously when you have writers and or creators, who don't take it seriously. And there are times, you know there are that there are times when stuff like that works, and there are times when it doesn't. Like it worked, like the funny, like the goofy, uh the goofy, like lighthearted tone, like it worked for the first Shazam movie, because well, yeah, actually no, for two reasons. One, it worked because, yeah, the overall, and I think I talked about this in a previous video, but the overall, concept of Shazam, the uh just, the overall tone, it worked for Shazam because uh that is the that it that is basically, like who the character is. Basically, that is the overall tone of, you know, of of the character, and the uh when was he first created? Just when he, like when he first appeared, uh whenever he first, was created, when he got uh I what I'm trying to say is, it worked back then. It worked for a it worked for something like Shazam. But when you have someone like Superman, who is obviously, when you have, someone like Superman, who is obviously not, goofy stupid, uh who is not, goofy stupid, who is not, who is obviously, meant to be taken seriously, it's not going to work for a character like Superman. And again, and I did say that I was going to put my personal feelings aside for, for Gunn for this video, and I am. But but at the same time, but at the same time, but at the same time, the goofy, juvenile humor, it's literally all, it's all that James Gunn knows how to do. And again, and we have seen the results of, and we have seen the results, we have seen the results of, of comic book movies when they go goofy stupid. We have seen what it did, for, and not just, and not just DC, and not just DC. We saw it with, Thor Love and Thunder. We saw it with the Marvels. We saw it with, uh we saw it with um we saw it with a lot of the past, MCU projects have but really, really I think Thor Love and Thunder is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest example um of that, because that I it it's not you're turning the character into something they were never, you know, you're turning the character into something they never were to begin with. And when you do stuff like that, and when you do stuff like that, it's going to turn people off. And and again, and again, Warner Brothers did it with The Flash. They did it with Shazam 2. They did it with Aquaman 2. They did it with Blue Beetle. This is why all of those movies bombed. Well, actually, it's one of the reasons, but that is but that is one of the main reasons why those movies bombed. And I know, and I know I've said this before, but I want to go back to the plot leak that I mentioned earlier. And because I did say that, um, because I did say at the beginning of the video that, that uh, that this new trailer pretty much confirms, you know, uh, that these leaks are true. So I'm going to read this again, just in case, anybody here who was watching this, didn't, didn't see, didn't get a chance to see it before. But, uh, I'm going to bring up, something else that I heard in a second, but it says here Superman is taken to the Fortress of Solitude to be healed by the robots that work there, uh, and that is something, we obviously saw in in that 5 minute sneak peek that dropped with Minecraft. Um, And it says here Lex Luthor and his team are introduced. They hate Superman and devise a plan to eliminate him, involving a partnership with the government of a foreign nation to take over a small country. And and this is another thing that I and this is another thing that I think is really, really going to turn people off about the movie, are the and I'm going to um and I am going to excuse me, I'm going to refer to this exactly how it says here in the leak, because I feel it's important. But it says a political metaphor. Luthor equals Elon Musk, corp corp corrupt country equals Russia, small country equals Ukraine. So it's like, why are you putting in, political metaphors in a Superman movie? And especially, I really don't want to bring politics into this, but, especially with how our especially with how our country is struggling right now with everything that's going on, with all that's happening right now in the world, why the hell would you want to bring stuff like that into your Superman movie? It's just it's just it's I anyway, moving on before, I start to go off. Um at the Daily Planet, Jimmy Olsen behaves as expected, but with a twist. Girls obsessively fawn over him, and he can't escape their attention. Um, Lois questions how Clark consistently gets interviews with Superman, creating some tension. Uh, Lois goes to her apartment at night and finds Clark there, which is one of the things that we see in the official trailer. Um, it is revealed that they've been secretly dating for 3 months, and she knows he's Superman. Their tension is all part of a cute role play thing at work. In her living room, she complains about Clark always interviewing Superman. She playfully turns on her microphone to record him, which is literally how this new trailer opens. She Yeah, I already read that. Starting as a cute game, but devolving into a long domestic argument about foreign policy and Superman's involvement. Lex Luthor releases monsters into the city to fight Superman, who defeats them. The Justice Gang, and yes, they are called the Justice Gang in the movie, as much as I hate to say it. The Justice Gang appears and helps in the fight. They are basically the Guardians of the Galaxy. Sorry, guys, this is actually a two-parter. So, um, and hang on, sorry. Okay, yep. And at one point, Luthor enters the Fortress of Solitude, uncorrupts Jor-El's messages about Superman being sent to conquer the world and broadcast them worldwide. The messages turn humanity against Superman, making him an outcast. Which definitely explains why. Which definitely explains that shot. In the trailer. When people are throwing cans and stuff at him. Superman, shunned by the world, returns to his human family. Lex Luthor has access, and yes, this has also already been confirmed to be true. Lex Luthor has access to a pocket universe where he traps people he hates, including ex-girlfriends. He violently beats Krypto and takes him to this universe. Somehow Superman ends up trapped there too. Lois and the Justice Gang discover Superman's location in the pocket universe through Jimmy, who has been secretly sexting Luthor's girlfriend. And from what I understand, this is another thing that I really wish I had saved. But if this report is true, that particular part of the leak, from what I understand, again, if this report is true, was removed, has been removed from the movie. She's obsessed with Superman, and her provocative photos unintentionally reveal confidential data. Superman eventually escapes the pocket universe by flying through pixelated lava, which looks like Minecraft. Superman saves some people and fights the foreign army, earning forgiveness from others. The best action scene, and it's described here as good as the hallway scene in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 involves Mr. Terrific. Superman learns about Luthor's plans with the foreign nation. He informs the government, but Luthor counters by revealing he cloned Superman. A fight ensues between Superman and his clone, who shares his DNA and could access the Fortress of Solitude. Superman defeats the clone, and Luthor is taken to jail. Superman returns to the Fortress of Solitude, where a drunken sorority version of Supergirl appears to reclaim Crypto, her dog. She has asked Superman to watch him for a week. Um, uh, Superman sits back, uh, asks to see his family again, but instead of Jor-El, it is his human family. So this sounds exactly like something James Gunn would do. And and again, it does not, and again, I really wouldn't be surprised if the reason why, a lot of what I just read, wasn't shown, in the trailer, was because Warner Brothers knew that it was going to turn people off. And I also wanted, but something else I wanted to bring up um, was, um, was a lot of the actors, um, was a lot of the actors have also been dropping, like various hints and stuff like that, um, confirming, basically confirming a lot of the things about the movie. For example, um, I don't remember if I ever brought this up in a video, and if I didn't, I apologize. I'm actually going to bring it up now. Um, I'm actually going to bring it up now. Um, I just got to find it. Um, Sorry guys, 2 seconds. I know I still have it here somewhere. I just don't remember where it is. Um oh, this is actually something I can't believe I forgot to bring this up. So, Superman is getting I don't remember if it's out already or not, but Superman is getting a junior novel. Um, it's getting a junior novel. For for like kids and stuff. Um, and in the junior novel, it is revealed that Superman is actually a metahuman instead of an alien. That is a huge, huge, change in, for obviously for, Superman's character. And this is the kind of stuff, this is the kind of stuff that I mean when I say that James Gunn doesn't do characters justice. He bastardizes them. He and you know and there's obviously a huge difference between changing something. There's obviously a huge difference between changing something because it wouldn't make sense. Because it wouldn't make sense. Uh, because it wouldn't make sense. Uh, because it wouldn't make sense. because it wouldn't make sense for, whatever it is, that you're adapting it, that you're adapting it into and changing something, just because you want to. And most of the time, and that is what, James Gunn does. He doesn't, he doesn't change stuff because he has to. He does it because he wants to. And and that's the kind of, this is, this is the kind of stuff, this is the kind of stuff that turns people off. And I really do believe that, this is the kind of stuff, that's gonna turn people off. Um, but yeah, no, let me, in fact, you know what? In fact, you know what? I'm just gonna Google it. Um, I'm just gonna Google it because I don't remember where I saved it, so I'm just gonna Google it and I'm gonna bring it up now. Um, yep, here it is. So this is another thing, that again, James Gunn changed because, he felt like it. Um, and it says here in James Gunn's Superman movie, Lois Lane and Clark Kent's relationship will be depicted as a complicated and uh, unlike anything we've ever seen in any media. According to Gunn himself, Gunn emphasizes that Lois is the one who needs convincing about their relationship, while Clark is deeply in love with her, and this dynamic highlights their individual needs within the relationship. The film will explore the tension uh, between Lois's grounded, no nonsense nature and Clark's superhuman existence, showcasing how a human and an alien try to connect on a personal level. Now this, and again, this is, you know, there's no reason at all, to be doing this kind of stuff. I mean, and I get it. There have been, there have obviously been, several, iterations of Superman on screen, but at the same time, it just feels like, changing something, just because you want to, it's like the old saying goes, it's like if it's not broken, don't fix it. And and this is obviously, one of those things. And and again, and this is James Gunn just, being James Gunn. And again, just, changing something, just for the hell of it. And I do, and I do really, really think that that this, is gonna turn, a lot of fans off. It definitely, it definitely turns me off. And uh the last thing I want to bring up before I end, this video is I saw a report of regarding the Superman movie, saying that the movie, and this comes from Daniel RPK, who is a very, very, very reliable insider. And he has reported that Superman Superman feels very, very episodic. Um, it feels very, very episodic, and and people here who, people here, who know Superman, who know comic books, will obviously know this already. But anybody here, who anybody here, who is watching this, who doesn't know comics, um, there is a Superman story. There is a Superman story called All Star. There is a Superman story called All Star Superman, written by Grant Morrison, and it is not it is not canon, but it is but it but it is considered but it is a beloved um it is a beloved story. Me personally, I am not for the most part, I do not like Grant Morrison. I do not like his writing style. Um but but James Gunn himself confirmed that one of his main inspiration, for this movie was All Star Superman, and it's easy to, as somebody, as somebody, who knows comics, who follows comics, uh, those elements are very, very easy to spot in this in this movie, and or in the 5 minute sneak peek that was dropped. um but according to Daniel RPK, the movie feels very, very episodic, because the way that All Star Superman was written, it was split into individual episodes. There were 12 issues total. Each issue of the book represents an episode. So, and from what I understand, that is how James Gunn decided to do this movie. Each uh it feels very, very episodic with no real plot behind it. And that alone is not a good sign. Obviously, it is not. um like a lot of the reports that I have seen, a lot of the stuff that I've read, a lot of the stuff that I've read, a lot of stuff that, a lot of the reports that I've seen say that this movie is it feels very much like it feels very much like a third movie in a series. It doesn't it's not a very cohesive movie. You know what I mean? It's not like it doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like the introduction of it doesn't feel like the introduction to, this character or this universe. And I think a lot, and I do think that a lot of people are going to be confused when they go to see this movie, if these reports are true. And I do think that they are true, considering like who's reporting on it. Um and I and again, yeah, and again, I and again, I do not expect this. I do not think that this movie is going to be a success at all. Um, and as someone, uh, and again, the fact that we literally just got, our first official trailer for this movie, and the fact that we're literally 2 months away, from this movie's release is not a good look. Um, it's not at all. Um, this is, the kind of movie that you start promoting at least a year in advance. And obviously, Warner Brothers Discovery, James Gunn, they obviously haven't been doing that. Um, so yeah, I just, I mean, and while, yes, there were, some things in the trailer again that, that I genuinely did like. There were also a lot of things about it that I'm just like, yeah, this is, this, this doesn't get me excited. This doesn't make me want to go spend my money. Um, but, you know, we're only, again, we're only 2 months away. We don't have much longer, so we will see what happens. But, we will see what happens. But, but again, I stand by what I said before. I have no hope at all for this movie. Um, I don't. And I have no hope at all. I'm not, um, I'm still debating whether or not I want to go see it. I may or may not do it as a Torture Tuesday. Um, if not, then if not, I might just wait till it drops on streaming. Honestly, I don't know. I'm just, I'm sick and tired of, stuff like this and, everything else. But anyway, yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know, if you agree with me. Have you seen the trailer yet? What did you think? What are your thoughts? And I will talk to you guys later. Peace.